Imagine you ask for a $400 piece of high-tech baby safety gear for your shower, and your friend gives you a $30 humidifier instead.
Oh man, that is basically a recipe for some major registry drama right there.
Right. A pregnant Reddit user is currently spiraling over this exact scenario. But here is the really uncomfortable truth. Clinically speaking, the humidifier might actually be the safer gift.
Which I know sounds completely backwards to anyone who has ever walked into a modern baby store.
Oh, completely.
What?
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling a subject where the information overload is just, well, it's absolutely paralyzing. We are talking about baby sleep safety.
Yeah, and whether you are prepping for your own little one or, just trying to navigate a registry for a friend, the sheer volume of marketing and anxiety out there is enough to make anyone's head spin.
Definitely. So our mission today is to cut right through that noise. We're going to separate the medically backed facts from the brilliant, but honestly, often misleading consumer marketing.
And you, our listeners, shared a really fantastic stack of sources for us to pull from today.
You did. We are analyzing that highly relatable Reddit thread about the baby shower gift, alongside the official updated clinical guidelines from the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the NIH.
Right. And to ground all of this and what parents are actually buying in the real world, we're also running this through an incredibly detailed, safe sleep bedding guide from Boss and Baby.
Yeah, and that massive 75-item baby gear list from Mommyhood 101. By the end of this deep dive, we're going to save you money, and more importantly, we're going to save you a mountain of anxiety.
Because honestly, anxiety really is the engine driving this particular market.
Well, 100%.
When you look at safe sleep products, it is so easy to assume that, spending more money equates to buying more safety. Or that if a product is sitting on a store shelf, someone official must have deemed it safe.
But the clinical data tells a very, very different story. Let's actually start with that Reddit thread because it perfectly captures the emotional weight of this whole industry.
It really does. It's so relatable.
We have this pregnant user who is highly anxious. Her friend asked what she wanted for her baby shower, and the user requested an Owlet baby monitor.
And for anyone unfamiliar, this is a wearable vitals tracker. It's usually like a little smart sock that monitors the baby's heart rate and oxygen levels while they sleep.
Yeah, and it's a premium item running somewhere between $200 and $400.
Which is a major financial investment, and it's marketed super heavily as like the ultimate peace of mind for new parents.
Exactly. So she tells her friend this is the one big thing she wants. But the friend goes out and buys a humidifier.
Completely different category of gift.
Right. So the pregnant user takes to Reddit, just agonizing over the interaction, wondering if she did something wrong, feeling deeply embarrassed.
And the commenters on Reddit essentially just brush her off.
Yeah, they tell her to blame the pregnancy hormones and go take a nap.
Which, that reaction from the internet misses the broader context completely.
I completely agree. Framing her panic as just hormones feels incredibly dismissive. When you look at the marketing these parents are subjected to, her anxiety is a completely rational response.
Oh, absolutely. It is an industry that literally monetizes fear.
It feels like new parents are basically looking for a technological safety blanket. You assume if it plugs in, has an app, and costs $400, it must be the ultimate shield against tragedy, right?
You'd think so, but the medical community views these devices through a very different lens.
Tell me about it.
If you look at the hard medical facts from the AAP and the NIH guidelines, they explicitly state that direct-to-consumer heart rate and pulse oximetry monitors are not recommended to reduce the risk of SIDS.
Wait, not recommended at all?
Nope. SIDS being sudden infant death syndrome, of course.
The AAP specifically advises against relying on them. That is such a massive disconnect from the consumer perception.
It really comes down to regulatory standards and, human behavior. The FDA classifies these monitors as consumer wellness devices.
So they aren't regulated medical devices.
Exactly. That distinction is crucial. It means they don't have to meet the rigorous, fail-safe clinical standards that an actual hospital-grade monitor would.
Right. And as one pediatric nurse pointed out in the comments of that very Reddit thread, medical professionals often advise against them for healthy babies.
Yeah, for two specific reasons. They create false complacency, and they trigger unnecessary panic.
False complacency meaning a parent might think, well, the monitor is on and tracking oxygen, so I don't have to follow the physical safety rules as strictly, I can leave this heavy blanket in the crib.
Precisely. A family's decision to use a monitor at home cannot become a substitute for following actual safe sleep guidelines.
Because a piece of wearable technology doesn't alter the physical environment.
Exactly. It doesn't prevent an airway from becoming obstructed in the first place.
So if the $400 app-connected sock isn't the silver bullet for infant sleep safety, what actually moves the needle?
That is the big question.
Looking at the NIH source, the AAP relies on what they call the triple risk model to explain SIDs. It seems kind of like a Venn diagram of tragedy.
That's a really good way to put it.
You need a vulnerable baby, a critical developmental period, and an outside trigger, all overlapping at exactly the wrong time. Are we just, trying to eliminate that outside trigger?
That is the absolute core of modern pediatric sleep guidance. The triple risk model proposes that SI days occurs when those three specific factors intersect.
Okay, let's break those down.
First, the infant has an intrinsic vulnerability. This is typically some undetected biological issue in the brainstem.
Something a parent wouldn't even know about.
Right. When a healthy baby experiences a drop in oxygen or a rise in carbon dioxide, their brain triggers an arousal response. They wake up, they cry, they shift their head.
But a baby with that intrinsic vulnerability.
You have a delayed or absent arousal response.
Wow. And that is a biological factor entirely out of a parent's control. You can't see it or test for it at home.
Exactly. And that leads to the second factor, the critical developmental period.
Which is when?
Typically the first 6 months of life. An infant's neurological and physical systems are undergoing rapid, intense changes. They are learning to regulate their own breathing and heart rate outside the womb.
So you cannot control the biology, and you obviously cannot fast forward the developmental stage.
Which leaves only the third circle of the Venn diagram, the exogenous trigger.
The outside stressor.
Right. The exogenous trigger is usually something in the physical sleep environment that physically obstructs their airway or causes them to rebreathe their own exhaled carbon dioxide.
Oh, I see.
Because we cannot control the first two factors, the entire medical focus is on completely eliminating that exogenous trigger.
That makes total sense. That is why the physical rules from the AAP and NIH are so uncompromising.
Back to sleep.
Every single time on a firm, flat, non-inclined surface.
Yes. Firm, flat, and non-inclined.
That word non-inclined really jumps out because looking at this massive baby gear list from Mommyhood 101, you see so many products that prop babies up.
Oh, the market is flooded with them.
Beautifully styled infant loungers, sleep positioners, wedges specifically marketed for babies with acid reflux.
And the medical consensus on inclines is absolute. There is a strict maximum of a 10-degree incline.
10 degrees is basically flat.
Pretty much. The AAP states clearly that elevating the head of the crib is medically ineffective in reducing reflux, and it introduces a severe physical hazard.
How so?
Well, the physiology of a newborn airway is often compared to a soft, flexible straw. If an infant is propped up on an incline or in a plush lounger, their heavy head can easily drop forward, chin to chest.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, that positioning physically kinks the flexible straw of their airway.
And if they have that intrinsic vulnerability we talked about, their brain doesn't tell them to wake up and unkink the straw.
Exactly. And this specific hazard is why the guidance actually became federal law.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In 2022, the government passed the Safe Sleep for Babies Act. It outright banned the manufacture and sale of inclined infant sleepers.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize there was a literal ban.
Anything with a sleep surface greater than 10 degrees marketed for infants up to 1 year old is now a banned hazardous product.
Mm-hmm.
The same law also banned padded crib bumpers.
Okay, but I am looking at the Boston Baby Guide, and it brings up a really confusing loophole here.
I think I know where you're going with this.
You go into a store and you see all these products labeled as breathable. Breathable mesh bumpers, breathable loungers, weighted swaddles that claim to be breathable. The marketing screams that this word equals safety.
Breathable is arguably the most dangerous marketing term in the entire baby industry.
That is a strong statement.
It's true, though. It is not a CPSC, Consumer Product Safety Commission certification. There is no regulatory body that tests a crib bumper and officially certifies it as breathable enough to prevent SIs.
So it's just a buzzword.
It is simply a word printed on a cardboard box.
I want to look really closely at those weighted swaddles, because they are incredibly popular on these gear lists to help babies sleep longer.
They are everywhere right now.
If the fabric itself allows air through, if it's quote-unquote breathable, why is it a hazard?
It comes back to biomechanics. Infants breathe primarily with their diaphragms, but they also rely really heavily on the accessory muscles in their chest wall.
Okay.
A weighted swaddle, even a very lightly weighted one, adds continuous resistance over the chest. Those tiny intercostal muscles simply do not have the strength to repeatedly lift against that weight over an 8-hour sleep cycle.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. It's basically a workout for them while they sleep.
Exactly. It leads to muscle fatigue and reduced oxygen exchange, and that is entirely independent of whether the fabric itself is breathable.
That is terrifying. And regarding the mesh bumpers, even if they aren't padded, the AAP medical guidelines are explicit. No bumpers of any kind. Bare is best.
Bare is absolutely best.
The Boss and Baby Guide notes that while a non-padded mesh liner might technically skirt the legal definition of the federal ban, it still introduces soft material into the sleep environment.
Right, which introduces other risks. Older infants use them as footholds to climb and fall out of the crib, or the ties come loose and create an entrapment hazard.
So the medical consensus is clear that the risk of introducing any accessory into the crib always outweighs any perceived benefit.
Always.
Okay, so a beautifully styled Pinterest crib with layered bumpers, a perfectly positioned lounger, and a weighted blanket is basically just a collection of federal safety hazards.
Pretty much a nightmare for a pediatrician.
If we have to strip the crib down to the studs, what actually goes inside?
According to the clinical guidelines, the list is incredibly short. The only things that belong in the crib are a firm mattress, a tightly fitted sheet, and the baby.
A mattress, a sheet, the baby. That's it.
Mm.
But we obviously can't leave a newborn shivering in a cold house if we can't use loose blankets.
Right. To manage temperature safely, the Boss and Baby Guide highly recommends sleep sacks, which are essentially wearable blankets.
Like a little sleeping bag they wear.
Exactly. They zip over the baby's pajamas, meaning the baby cannot kick them off. And more importantly, the fabric cannot ride up over their face and obstruct their airway.
The guide breaks down how to choose them using something called a TOG rating. Let's explain how parents actually use this metric.
Yeah, so TOG stands for Thermal Overall Grade. It is a standardized measurement of how much heat a garment retains.
So it takes the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. Instead of guessing if a blanket is too thick, parents can match the TOG rating to their nursery's ambient temperature.
How does the scale work?
A 0.5 TOG is a very lightweight, breathable cotton layer designed for warm rooms over 75 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
A 1.0 TOG is your standard year-round weight for typical room temperatures around 69 to 73 degrees.
Makes sense.
And a 2.5 TOG is a quilted, much thicker garment for cold rooms under 68 degrees.
So you basically just check the thermostat, put on the appropriate TOG sleep sack over their pajamas, and the infant is perfectly warm with zero loose material in the environment.
That's the system. It works brilliantly.
That system removes so much of the anxiety. But when parents are shopping for the mattress and the sheets themselves, they run into an absolute alphabet soup of certifications.
Yeah, the acronyms are endless.
The sources mention GOTS, Obicotex, GreenGuard Gold, and MaidSafe. Looking at these, they seem to just be chemical screens, right?
They are, yeah.
Like, an organic cotton sheet is great for avoiding heavy metals, or PFAS, but it doesn't stop the triple risk model if the elastic snaps and it wraps around a baby's face.
You have hit on a vital distinction that often confuses consumers. We really must separate chemical safety from structural safety.
Say more about that.
Well, certifications like Okotex or GreenGuard are wonderful for reducing a child's long-term environmental chemical exposure. But a chemically pure, 100% organic sleep environment will still cause suffocation if the physical structure fails.
Right. Structural fit is what actually prevents SIs.
Exactly.
So how does the CPSC define and measure that structural fit?
For the mattress, the gold standard is the CPSC two-finger test.
Two-finger test.
Yeah, you should not be able to fit more than 2 fingers between the edge of the mattress and the side of the crib.
Oh, I see. What happens if the gap is bigger?
If the gap is larger than that, it creates an entrapment hazard where an infant could roll and become wedged face down between the mattress and the slats.
Got it.
Furthermore, the crib slats themselves must be legally spaced no more than 2 3/8 inches apart. This prevents an infant's body from slipping through while their larger head gets caught.
Looking back at the Mommyhood 101 gear list, there is a specific mattress that dominates the premium market right now. The Newton Woven Air.
Oh, yes, very popular.
It claims to be completely breathable, literally made of a polymer core that is 90% air.
It is a fascinating piece of engineering, honestly. The concept is that if an infant does roll face down before they have the strength to roll back, they can theoretically breathe right through the porous core of the mattress.
Sounds amazing.
Mm.
But is there a catch?
Well, even with an innovative breathable core, the structural rules remain paramount. The mattress still must pass the two-finger test. The sheet still must be tightly secured.
Right.
The AAP does not mandate that parents purchase an expensive breathable mattress, only a firm, flat one. A product like the Newton offers an extra layer of peace of mind, provided parents still strictly enforce the bare is best rule on top of it.
Okay, so we've engineered this perfectly bare, mathematically safe, 1.0 TOG rated sleep zone.
The perfect sterile environment.
Right. But that sterile environment collides with reality at 3 a.m. when a newborn is screaming to be fed. How does a sleep-deprived parent interact with this setup without compromising it?
This is such a critical point. The clinical guidelines from the AAP and NIH spend significant time on these human practices because human behavior is just as critical as the consumer products.
So what's the official guidance?
The foremost recommendation regarding parental practice is room sharing without bed sharing, ideally for the first 6 to 12 months.
Room sharing, meaning the crib or bassinet is in the parent's bedroom, but the baby is physically in their own separate sleep space.
Yes. Sleeping in the same room reduces the risk of SIDS by as much as 50%.
Wow, 50% just from being in the same room. How does that work?
It's really interesting. The ambient background noise of the parents moving and breathing actually prevents the infant from falling into a sleep state that is too deep, which directly mitigates that intrinsic vulnerability arousal defect we discussed earlier.
That is incredible. But conversely, bed sharing, bringing the baby onto the adult mattress to sleep, introduces staggering risk multipliers.
Staggering is the right word.
Let's lay out those specific statistics, because I think the casual nature of bed sharing on social media severely masks the mathematical danger.
The medical data is very sobering. Bed sharing results in more than 10 times the baseline risk of infant death if the parent in the bed is impaired by alcohol or drugs, or if they are a smoker.
Even if they don't smoke in the bedroom itself.
Even if they never smoke in the bedroom itself, yes. The risk is 5 to 10 times higher if the infant is under 4 months old, simply because they lack the motor skills to extract themselves from a heavy adult blanket or a parent's body.
And what about couches? People fall asleep on couches all the time.
It is 2 to 5 times the risk if you are bed sharing on a notoriously soft surface, like a couch or an armchair.
See, telling an exhausted parent not to fall asleep while feeding their baby at 3 a.m. is like telling a car with an empty gas tank to keep driving just because you are on the highway.
It's impossible.
Biology is going to force the shutdown eventually. You are sitting there in the dark, rocking a warm baby. You haven't slept in days. Accidental sleep is going to happen. Does the AAP acknowledge this reality?
They absolutely do. The AAP is composed of pediatricians who understand the brutal reality of sleep deprivation.
Okay, good. So what do they suggest?
They offer a very specific, practical harm reduction concession. They advise that if you feel there is any chance you might accidentally fall asleep while feeding, doing it in an adult bed that is cleared of all pillows and heavy blankets is significantly less hazardous than falling asleep on a sofa or in a plush armchair.
Because the physics of a couch basically create a trap.
Exactly. If a parent falls asleep sitting up, the baby can easily slip down and get wedged in the V shape between the parent's ribs and the soft armrest cushions.
Oh, that makes sense.
The wedging hazard on a couch or armchair is incredibly lethal, so the pragmatic guidance is feed in the cleared adult bed, and the absolute second you wake up, move the infant back to their own set. It relies on 2 specific biomechanical functions. First, the active sucking motion physically pulls the genioglossus muscle, the base of the tongue, forward.
Oh, which helps mechanically keep the airway open.
You got it. Second, similar to the ambient noise of room sharing, the continuous sucking action requires microarousals in the infant's brain.
So it keeps their neurological system active enough to prevent them from slipping into a dangerously deep, unrousable sleep state.
Precisely.
The guidelines also heavily emphasize awake tummy time.
Yes. Because infants are now spending all of their unsupervised sleep time safely on their backs, they require supervised, awake tummy time to build their physical architecture.
What does that do?
It prevents the flattening of the back of the skull, and more importantly, it builds the crucial shoulder and neck strength they need to lift their heavy heads and clear their own airways if they ever do accidentally roll face down.
When should parents start that?
The AAP recommends starting soon after hospital discharge and building up to 15 to 30 minutes of total daily tummy time by the time they were 7 weeks old.
Okay, let's tie all of this together for you, the listener. The most empowering takeaway from all this clinical data is that true safety is remarkably low-tech and inexpensive.
Yeah, true.
You don't need a $400 smart sock to be a good parent, and you don't need a perfectly styled Pinterest crib full of mesh bumpers and weighted swaddles.
You really don't.
True safe sleep is a bare crib. It's a flat mattress, it's a wearable sleep sack matched to the room temperature, and it's mindful human routines like room sharing and offering a pacifier. It's almost anticlimactic how simple the mechanics of safety actually are.
It is mechanically simple, yes, but analyzing this massive influx of expensive gear raises a much broader and honestly somewhat uncomfortable societal question.
Let's hear it.
We have seen today how aggressively the consumer market pushes hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of unproven safety tech and perfectly styled hazardous bedding onto vulnerable, anxious new parents.
Yeah, they really do.
When a parent is profoundly isolated, sleep-deprived, and terrified, a $400 monitor feels like the only lifeline they have.
It's buying a feeling of control.
Exactly. So we have to ask ourselves, does our culture rely so heavily on marketing these expensive consumer products because, as a society, we entirely fail to provide the communal support, the paid family leave, and the structural resources that exhausted new parents actually need to survive?